What exactly is this structured water? It's not liquid, it's not gas, it's not ice, it's something different. And apparently that is the form of water that is mostly in our bodies, it seems. Is that right?
Yeah, that's that's exactly correct. And you know, the way an easy way you can think about the water in our body. Think about a raw egg. Crack open a raw egg and examine the egg white. Now, we're told that the cytoplasm is just like liquid water, just like this. But you can see from the cytoplasm, from the egg white, that it's a gel. And that gel is essentially what we've discovered that we call easy water or fourth phase water. Another way you can determine that it's not liquid water that is inside your body or inside your gel, inside your cell. You can, if you're brave, you can take a razor blade, run it along your forearm, cut. And if you do that, what you find is that blood comes out, right? But water doesn't come out. And oddly, it would seem oddly that if the cells are filled with easy water, and if you cut the cells, the water should come pouring out as from a breached water pipe, but it doesn't do that. Even surgeons who, I've got a friend who's a surgeon, and she tells me that, deep in the abdomen, you cut through a muscle, and you'd expect that the water, which in theory is inside the cell, should come pouring out, but it doesn't. Never comes pouring out. So
I'd never thought about it that way, but
it's good to give some practical examples that could convince you. So there's something else that's inside the cell. And I first learned about this. I didn't invent the idea. I learned about it from a guy named Gilbert Ling, who passed about 5 years ago. Gilbert came from China. He was chosen after World War II in 1948. The Chinese government decided they were going to send their most promising young scholars to advance their careers in the U.S. And over a period of 2 years, they identified 4 people who they sent over, and Gilbert Ling was one of them. The other 3 won Nobel Prizes. Gilbert did not win a Nobel Prize. Many people think he should have won 2 Nobel Prizes for all the many contributions that he made. But he was a controversial guy, and the work that he was doing was controversial. He said, water inside the cell is not like water in a glass. He said, it's not liquid water, it's different. He said, he called it structured water, and I think that's where the name originated. His idea was that the molecules of water were actually stacked on one another or lined up like soldiers at attention. And you can imagine such because many people think of a water molecule as being like a dipole, like a bean with a plus at one end, minus at the other end. And so you can imagine how these beans would stack upon one another. And that was his idea. It's ordered, it's structured. It's not randomly oriented molecules bouncing around rapidly. I was astonished. He had so much evidence in favor of some kind of structure, and other people came after him who had been specifically invited, who supported his point of view, who had evidence in support. I'm thinking this is so important that we're maybe going to shift our interest from muscle contraction to water. They came back to me, and their reactions were the same. This is so important. This is so interesting. And he has so much evidence to support his point of view presented in that book. And if he's right, everybody else is wrong. Now, that's pretty captivating, I tell you. We managed to get a little bit of money, and we started doing experiments. So what we found, we tried, at first, it was merely an attempt to prove that Gilbert's ideas were correct, or that he was right on track, that there was such a thing as structured water. We wanted to demonstrate that. And we did. We could demonstrate in short order that there was a kind of ordering of water that occurred. I'll skip the details of the experiment because maybe they're not so interesting. But we found a region where water molecules excluded any kind of substance that was dissolved in the water or suspended in the water. So that's why we called it exclusion zone. We use that term very often. Later, we called it fourth phase water because everything about the nature of that exclusion zone differed from ordinary liquid water.
Could you list a couple, a few of those differences between easy water and liquid?
Sure.
I think we understand the difference between gas and ice, but liquid and structured water seem very similar to probably most people, and so I'm curious what your...
Well, yeah, one of them was viscosity. So easy water has a high viscosity, and higher viscosity, and that harks back to the gel-like behavior that I mentioned earlier. So high viscosity is one. Order is another. The molecules are ordered in some way, which is really what we wanted to find out, and we found out. And a third one, there are a dozen of them, but let me just focus on the third one because that's maybe the most important one. This region of water we presumed is going to be neutral because we started with neutral water, neutral liquid water. So of course it should be neutral. We made measurements of the electrical potential in that exclusion zone, and we thought it should be neutral, but turned out to be negatively charged, typically negatively charged. And that didn't make sense at all because when you start with neutral liquid water, how could you wind up with a large zone of negative charge? You know, who created that negative charge? Where did it come from? And a lot of head scratching, and we're thinking there must be another region that has positive charge, equal amount of positive charge. And we found it just beyond the EZ. So we found the EZ is created next to some surface early on in the experiments.
A hydrophilic surface.
Hydrophilic surface, right. And next to this hydrophilic surface, we found this exclusion zone of fourth phase water, negatively charged. And right next to it was positive charge, protons lodged in the water. And usually protons stick onto water molecules, forming what's called a hydronium ion. But that's of secondary importance. The important part was we got negative charge next to positive charge.
And it didn't collapse, similar to your atom critique, right?
It didn't collapse. And, you know, I might mention the reason it didn't collapse, since you asked the question, is that the structure of the EZ turned out not to be, as Gilbert Ling thought, you know, a lineup of water molecules. It turned out to have a different structure. The water underwent a change. And the change is next to this hydrophilic, water-loving surface, the water turned into layers, surfaces, one surface, then another surface, and another. And each surface is nucleated by the previous surface. It forms a template for the growth of the next one. And these layers can extend out up to 1 million of them, is typical. That would be half a millimeter or so. You could see it with your naked eye.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, the structure of each layer is a honeycomb structure, you know, like many hexagonal kinds of structures appear throughout nature, and this is one of them. So you've got hexagons here, and the opening of the hexagon is very small. It's made even smaller by the fact that the next layer, also hexagons, but shifted slightly, half of the width of a hexagon. So it means the holes, the hexagonal holes to get through are very, very small. The hydronium ions that are sitting out here, the positive, although the positive would dearly love to enter into this matrix, but can't get there because the holes are too small. That's the key. That's what prevents the two from combining.
Fascinating.
That's what keeps them separated. That's what creates a battery.
Yeah. Yeah. The water battery.
The water battery. And so, that's one of the main features is that the water becomes a battery. Now, we never think of water as a battery, but water is a battery.
I want to share what this podcast is all about. You see, I'm on this journey to design the healthiest home in the world. That's why I sit down with brilliant minds across biology, medicine, design, and more, all with one goal in mind: a home tuned to human biology. This is where I brainstorm, where we explore what it really means to create a home that heals. If that sounds like something you care about, hit subscribe, and let's see where this goes.